A Russian man claiming to hold top-level secrets about Russian advanced bombers has just turned up at the U.S. southern border, seeking asylum. The man claims to have been an engineer at a production facility over in the city of Kazan, and he says that he possesses top-secret information about the White Swan Tu-160, which is the most advanced bomber in the Russian arsenal. U.S. border officials, they interviewed the man, and they determined that his story was in fact credible and eventually passed him off to the FBI, who are still in the process of interrogating him right now. However, analysts have pointed out that the fact that the story was even leaked to the public is an indication that perhaps the American government is encouraging other Russians who also hold top-level secrets to also escape to America. And if you thought that was interesting, well then you should click on that button below this video and check out Epoch TV, one of the best no-censorship video platforms on the internet. On there you will find awesome programs like American Thought Leaders.
We've now been, for 2 years, trying to obtain the unredacted emails. We're down to the last 50 pages. So that's where all the incriminating evidence is.
Crossroads.
One of the big things happening right now is what's taking place with Russia and China.
Counterpunch.
You will see information you've never seen anywhere else.
Facts Matter. I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed, and most importantly, stay free. As well as a plethora of great documentaries, wholesome movies that you can enjoy with your whole family.
If I reach 1 hour, I accomplish something.
Cooking programs, and my absolute favorite, programs about traditional art and traditional music, which can honestly uplift your mood and fill you with hope for the future. And the best thing about Epoch TV, at least in my opinion, is that there's no corporate backing and there's no allegiance to some anti-American agenda.
How dare you come to this peaceful community and try to scam these people?
What the hell are you talking about?
But rather, it's just good, honest, wholesome content that's based in truth and tradition.
I saw him. It was incredible.
Something that you can actually sit down with your whole family and enjoy, knowing that some ideology is not about to be pushed upon you.
And who's fighting it? We're fighting it here at Epoch Times, and we need to keep bringing you the news.
And so again, if you'd like to check out Epoch TV, just click on that button below this video. You and your family will absolutely love it.
Ready? Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. May I have your attention? Please continue your dinner. And they did not allow me to test the brownies this morning, but I understand they're amazing. First of all, I would like to recognize the wait staff and all of those with the Central Wisconsin Convention and Expo Center. Next, I would like to recognize the many volunteers who helped to organize tonight's event. And the Republican Party of Marathon County leaders in attendance, please stand to be recognized. Now to the part of the program that brought you here tonight. Congressman Tom Tiffany represents the 7th Congressional District of Wisconsin. Tom Tiffany was elected in May 2020 in a special election for this seat. Prior to his election to Congress, Representative Tiffany served in the Wisconsin State Assembly and the State Senate for the 12th District. He was a member of the Joint Finance Committee, which is responsible for the state's budget, and served as chairman of the Senate Committee on Sporting, Heritage, Mining, and Forestry. During his time in the state legislature, Representative Tiffany worked to cut taxes, to increase job creation, to defend the rights of the unborn, and to protect the Second Amendment rights we all enjoy. Representative Tiffany has deep roots in the 7th District. He grew up on a dairy farm near Elmwood, Wisconsin, and graduated from the University of Wisconsin-River Falls with a degree in agricultural economics. He is honored to represent the people of northern and western Wisconsin by restoring freedom to create a more prosperous America. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Congressman Tom Tiffany. So it's great to have the national media and all of you here to hear Kevin and I speak tonight. Now, I want to say a big thank you for the leadership, Kevin, that you're providing here in Marathon County. People that helped put this together tonight, thank you. You were diligent in planning, making sure all the details were taken care of. Thank you so much to the Marathon County Republicans for hosting this tonight. Tonight I'd like to share a report from Washington, D.C. with you, and then I'm going to conclude by introducing our next speaker. I'm a bit concerned. We recently did a hearing in New York City. You may have saw that, those of us on the Judiciary Committee. And one of my colleagues from Florida, he referred to New Yorkers at that hearing as future Floridians. I'm concerned this may be a scouting trip by the governor from Florida. So it's 3 years ago this month that you sent me to Washington, D.C. And in the first 2.5 years, here's what happened. The cost of living skyrocketed. Democrats fought for bigger welfare checks and smaller paychecks for working Americans. President Biden, in his very first action, January 20th of 2021, he shut down the Keystone Pipeline, leading us back to energy dependence. He opened up the pipeline to Panama, where millions of people, larger than the population of the state of Wisconsin, have come in illegally to our country. Today's Democrat Party puts illegal aliens first and Americans second. Every state is now a border state. In Joe Biden's America, Title IX is ended. You know, I think about it, Chris and I, by the way, my wife Chris is here tonight. Thank you for putting up with politics throughout the years. Oh, my God. But I think about our 3 daughters, the Tiffany sisters, all participated in interscholastic sports. Now, with Joe Biden in charge, their place may be taken by a man. Men may go in women's bathrooms. In Joe Biden's America, you're penalized for having good credit. Every Democrat in the last session of Congress, save one, voted for abortion on demand, all the way up to 9 months. I never thought I would see Democrats go back to their 19th century roots. Under Joe Biden, federal ag and COVID programs the bureaucrats were allowed to explicitly discriminate against people based on their race. I never thought I'd see a Democrat Party that would go back to the 19th century. Our foreign policy is in tatters, begging countries to produce more oil like our adversaries in Venezuela, the disastrous pullout of Afghanistan, something we haven't seen since Vietnam, $85 billion of our most advanced war material left over in Afghanistan. But more importantly, 13 of our finest were left at the gates of the Kabul airport. There's a basic question before the American people at this point. Is the 21st century going to be an American century? Or is it going to be a Chinese century? Because make no doubt about it, folks, China seeks world hegemony in the 21st century. The 20th century was an American century. Think how we closed out the 20th century. The lone superpower in the world. China does not accept that. And the decisions we make today will decide whether the 21st century will also be an American century. So in the last 6 months, things have changed a little bit. The voters across America said, we're going to send new leadership, a new majority to the House of Representatives. And you know, we got off to kind of an interesting start, 4 days and 15 votes. In fact, I received a number of texts from people sitting right in this room. What the heck are you guys doing? It appears to be chaos. It appears you don't know what you're doing. But I got to tell you, led by many of my colleagues in the Freedom Caucus, and by the way, one of the originators of the Freedom Caucus is right here tonight, Governor Ron DeSantis. But led by some of my colleagues, they said, we're not going to have any more Christmas tree bills. We're not going to have votes that get called in 2 hours for a 1,000-page bill. We're not going to have bills passed without hearings. And when your friends out there, they tell you that Republicans don't want good, honest debate, one of the most important things that we did through that whole process is 4 days and 15 votes, is make sure that every single member, all 435, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you can offer an amendment from the floor of the House to change a bill. Nancy Pelosi's one-person rule is over. So what have we done since then? We've defunded the 87,000 IRS agents that were funded in the last Congress. Our very first bill, H.R. 1, lowering energy costs, we passed that bill and have sent it on to the Senate. We want to be energy independent in America once again. We voted to protect your daughters and granddaughters so men do not go in their bathrooms and they get to play the sports that they're guaranteed under Title IX. And next week, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to vote to secure the border. Two weeks ago, I sit on the Judiciary Committee. 2 weeks ago, we passed the strongest secure the border bill in the history of the United States of America. And we're going to find out how serious some United States senators that are up for re-election are about securing the border of the United States of America. And while that's all going on, we're going to continue the rigorous oversight of the executive branch. Our executive branch needs a little bit of oversight, doesn't it? We will continue to have hearings into the FBI. We will continue to have hearings into the Department of Justice. We will have hearings into the Centers for Disease Control and what they did to the people of the United States of America with COVID. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we will have hearings into the Biden family and what they did. Because I believe all the American people ask for is transparency. All they ask for transparency, let the chips fall where they may, right? Let's find out what happened. What happened with the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, getting 51 intelligence agents to sign on to a letter. Let's find out what happened with the relationship with China. That's all we want is the truth, don't we? That's all we want. So right back here in Wisconsin, wouldn't it be nice to initiate the Florida blueprint right here in Wisconsin? How would you like to have crime being at a 50-year low in your state of Wisconsin? How would you like to have the Soros prosecutors removed from office if they're not going to fight crime? And yes, John Chisholm, we are talking about you in Milwaukee County. Wouldn't you like it if you had a state that chose to educate your children, not indoctrinate them? Wouldn't it be nice to be a state where woke goes to die? And wouldn't you like to be in a state that says we do not find it acceptable to have human trafficking and illegal immigration going on in our state? And wouldn't it be nice to be in a state where Zuckerbucks is outlawed and ballot harvesting is illegal? So we got a big task in front of us here in Wisconsin. Let's not sugarcoat it. Last fall and this April, we had some successes, but we didn't have nearly enough successes. And we got work to do here in Wisconsin. And I think about the 7th Congressional District, the leadership of my predecessor, Sean Duffy, who said that, you know what, this does not need to be Dave Obey's seat for another 40 years. He started, and we've been ramping it up, election after election after election. And with the help of folks like you, we continue to drive our vote totals higher and higher in the 7th Congressional District. We also are flipping county board seats. We are flipping school board seats. And we have now turned every legislative district in the 7th Congressional District red. I don't know if you all know this, but we had 3 blue districts left up in northwestern Wisconsin. With the work of my team and people like you, we were able to flip those final 3 districts red here in northern and western Wisconsin. But I'd like you to think about, wouldn't it be great if we could turn over the next couple years 1 in 10 voters in Wisconsin that have not been voting with us, wouldn't it be great to get them to vote with us in 2024, in 2026? Because our guest tonight did that in 4 short years in Florida. Think about it. Florida, one of the largest states in the country, he only won by 32,000 votes in 2018. I mean, that's like winning by like 5,000 or 7,000 votes in Wisconsin. That is a nail-biter. But by standing by his conservative principles, leading in the state of Florida, he flipped those 1 in 10 seats through a landslide where he went up 10 percentage points in this last election, did Governor Ron DeSantis. I'd like to introduce you tonight our special guest from the state of Florida, who's showing how it's done to the rest of the United States of America, the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis.
I am a real American, fight for the rights of every man. I am a real American, fight for what's right, fight for your life.
USA! Hey, so we got the governor down to Mullins Cheese after he got off the plane in Mosinee, and Joey said that Wisconsin cheese. You bet. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, tonight I want to send something home for he, Casey, and the kids. If you all remember, the theme of my campaign last year was America is in a pickle. And my mother, 91 years old, makes the best dill pickles in the United States of America, and here they are. I'm going to say one final thing. Governor, I'm just going to say this. Your staff is going to want to open those pickles on the way home tonight. Those are for Casey and the kids.
Well, hello, greetings from the free state of Florida. Thank you, Congressman, for the great introduction. Also, we have Glenn, who I serve with. You guys have some great members of Congress here. I've also been able to meet with some of the state legislators. You have great state legislature in Wisconsin. Just need to add that governor, and you'll be in much better shape. The hospitality's been fantastic. People here are so nice, and I always enjoy spending time with folks from Wisconsin. As governor of Florida, usually that just means I go to Naples in winter, and half of Wisconsin is down there, but it's great to be visiting the real thing. Now, I come bearing good news, and you may say, what good news is there? Republicans have had a series of disappointing election results, not just here in Wisconsin, but really across the country. You see the Dems and the left, they are absolutely ruining communities all across this nation. And of course, Joe Biden has done more to damage this country in 2.5 years than any president in our lifetime. So what's the good news? The good news is the state of Florida and what we've achieved shows Republicans can win again. Florida is the place where our shared ideas and our shared values actually become political reality. In Washington, D.C., and in many states across this country, big conservative policy victories are few and far between. In Florida, we deliver big victories every single day. But it was not something that was foreordained. And when I ran for governor, Florida was a great state. There were a lot of good things going on. But it was the single most pivotal swing state. It was basically like Wisconsin is now, very evenly divided. And I came in, as the congressman mentioned, by 32,000 votes. That was less than 0.5%. But the thing about that was not out of the ordinary for Florida. If you go back the previous 10 years, in 2010, 12, 14, 16, and then my election in 18, the governor races, the president races, they were all decided by about 1 percentage point. And that's just the state that we had. And so people told me when I was getting ready to take office, Governor, you got to understand this state has a very delicate political balance. You got to be mindful of that. Don't rock the boat. keep your head down. You don't want to make too many waves, because if you do that, you could end up losing a little bit of support, and then guess what? You give the Democrats the upper hand. And honestly, it was not crazy advice. It was advice that I understood, but it was advice that I rejected. Yes, I may have earned 50% of the vote, but that entitled me to wield 100% of the executive power, and I resolved to use it to advance conservative principles and to make good on our promises. And I resolved to do that without looking at any polls to tell me what positions to take. And to this day, we have never taken polls on any issues that I've addressed as governor. A leader is not captive to polls. A leader gets ahead of polls. A leader sets a vision, executes on that vision, and delivers results. That's when you can look at the polls. We also understood that going in, as a governor or any executive, you can have great ideas, you can make great decisions. You can't do it alone. You have to surround yourself with a cadre of people who put the mission first, who share your values, and are not bringing any other agenda to serving in the administration. So we let it be clear on day one, anyone signing up with us, if your agenda diverges from our agenda, there's the door. Take a hike right now. And because we did that, we don't have any leaks in my administration. We don't have any palace intrigue. We don't have any drama. What we do is execute the mission day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And that means we beat the left day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. I also said I am not going to be like some of these Republicans who get into office and they're almost like potted plants. They get there, they don't do anything. And look, sometimes just elected officials, they want to be liked, and at the end of the day, anytime you make a decision, some people like the decision you make, and some people don't like the decision you make. And so if you're leaning in on issues, making a lot of decisions, yes, there are people that may not like those decisions. So sometimes it's safe to just kind of sit back, not get into the fray, and let issues come to you. My view is we can't afford to do that. We're going on offense. We are going to make sure that we identify issues, we get ahead of issues, and we bring victories home. And I sat in the desk the first day I got inaugurated governor, and I looked around the office, in the governor's office, and I told myself, I don't know what SOB is going to succeed me in this office, but they ain't going to have much to do. I'm taking all the meat off the bone, and we're going to bring it home. And then the final thing I recognized going into office was this. A lot of offices are important, but when you're in an executive position like a governor, it's not enough to just be right on the policy. That position requires you exercise leadership. And leadership means that you're willing to do the right thing in the face of intense criticism and opposition. It means you may have to take positions where you are standing all alone to do what's right. And so when we got in after about a year in office, we ended up having to face COVID-19. And I had to take positions on there that departed from the accepted orthodoxy, that rejected people like Dr. Fauci, that took on the media. And I was doing this stuff, whether it was businesses, schools, all this stuff, and I was getting hammered by corporate media outlets, by the left, even by some Republicans, by bureaucrats. And a lot of people that were really good supporters of mine were like, man, you got to do something else because you're getting killed on this. You're not going to be long for this world politically if you keep going down this road. But to me, leadership is understanding that you got to care more about protecting the jobs of the people you represent than in protecting your own job or your own political hide. And I didn't know how it would shake out politically, but I was resolved that I would be able to look into that mirror, knowing that the decisions I made to protect people's freedoms and jobs and businesses and education, that those were the right decisions, and let the chips fall where they may. And ultimately, as a leader, you've got to be willing to do what's right, regardless of the political consequences. So as the congressman mentioned, you fast forward 4 years, we had won by 32,000 votes, less than half a percentage point. 4 years later, after leading with conviction, after being bold, after leaning into issues, after doing things that political prognosticators would always say I was making some type of mistake, we didn't win by 32,000 votes. We won by over 1.5 million votes. We earned the highest percentage of the vote that any Republican candidate for governor has ever received in the history of the state of Florida. We were able to win independents by 18 percentage points. We won over 60% of Hispanics. We won women by 8 percentage points. We took some of our biggest, previously most bluest areas, like Miami-Dade County with 2.8 million people, and we turned it red, and we turned it red by double digits. But it's not just me. I mean, I was leading the ticket, and obviously I had to win my race, but I had a responsibility to make sure that a rising tide lifted all boats, that we're able to sweep the legislative races, school board races, and on down the line. And we now, in the state of Florida, have strong supermajorities in both houses of the Florida legislature. We got involved in funding school board races, 34 of them, and we were able to elect 29 conservative school board members all across the state of Florida. Politics is a team sport. You got to build that bench. And so now, because of our efforts, for the first time since the Civil War era, there is not a single Democrat elected to statewide office in the Sunshine State. So this was a historic drubbing of the Democrat Party in Florida, and I quote from a headline from one of the legacy media outlets after the election, quote, "There's no plan, there's nothing. Florida Democrats in despair about the future." That is what you call winning as Republicans. But here's the thing. Winning elections is great. There's so much punditry that goes into it, so much hand-wringing, all this other stuff. But winning really just gives you the opportunity to make good on your promises. And I don't believe politics is entertainment. I don't believe politics is about building a brand or about virtue signaling on social media. Ultimately, politics is about winning and about producing results for the people you represent. And we have produced results and won in Florida in ways that are second to none. We are the nation's fastest growing state. We are the #1 state with net in-migration. Some of your fellow citizens are part of that migration. We are #1 in the nation for new business formations, #1 for education freedom, now #1 in education overall by U.S. News and World Report, #1 for parental involvement in education. We have no state income tax. You should try it sometime. We are also good stewards of the taxpayers' money. New York State has millions of people fewer than Florida now, and yet their budget is twice the size of our state budget. and yet we have better roads, better services, and better education. Where is that money going that New York is taxing all these people for? We also have the second lowest per capita tax burden in America and the second lowest per capita debt burden in America. Florida's economy is $1.2 trillion plus, and our debt is about $20 billion. Can you imagine if the federal government had such a healthy ratio? And we've also posted the largest budget surplus in the history of the state of Florida. And I'm just proud of all the success we've had. None of it would have been possible had, when the world lost its mind, when common sense suddenly became an uncommon virtue, Florida stood as a citadel of freedom, a refuge of sanity for people in our state, throughout the United States, and even throughout the world. We refused to let our state descend into some type of Faucian dystopia where people's livelihoods were destroyed and their freedoms were curtailed. No, we chose freedom over Fauciism. And don't let them rewrite history. Fauci was wrong, and we can never let this happen in our country again. And people have flooded to Florida because we stood up for their freedom. They've also stood up because we are supporting in our school system the idea that education is the purpose, not political indoctrination. We believe in the rights of parents to direct the education and upbringing of their kids. We believe in the idea that parents have a right to know what curriculum is being offered in the school and understand what books are in the library. And when we give them the power to be able to object to things that are not appropriate, you have the left and the media try to attack as saying you're, quote, banning books. I can tell you, you can buy whatever book you want in Florida, but when you have books in school that are pornographic, that are inappropriate for age, parents have every right to know that, and they have every right to object. I did an event to highlight this, and we called it Exposing the Book Ban Hoax, because that's what it is, what the media is trying to do with the narrative. But before we did the press conference, I just played on the screen the images from the books that the parents were objecting to. The media, local news stations, had to cut their feed because they said it was too graphic. Well, if it's too graphic for the 6 o'clock news, how is it appropriate for a 10-year-old school child? We have eliminated critical race theory in our K-12 schools. We're not teaching our kids to hate our country or to hate each other with your tax dollars. Instead, we are putting a renewed emphasis on American civics. Our kids need to understand the founding principles of this country. They need to understand the Constitution of this country, and they need to know what it means to be an American and why so many people have sacrificed for this country. We even have identified one day every year where our school children are taught about the evils of communist regimes throughout history. We're telling the truth about Marxism and Leninism in Florida. Now, the school and education, they're so important issues, and I got to view this through the lens of a governor, but I also can't help but view it through the lens of a dad, of a 6, a 5, and a 3-year-old. And my wife and I, as parents, both believe that parents should be able to send their kids to school, be able to have them watch cartoons, just be able to be kids without someone trying to shove an agenda down their throat. It is wrong. It is wrong for schools to teach these young kids that their gender is a choice or that they were born in the wrong body. That is unacceptable. And in Florida, we decided to do something about that. Not everyone liked that. The media didn't like it. The left didn't like it. And one of our businesses in Central Florida didn't like it. You may have heard of. And basically, for over 50 years, anything Disney has wanted in the political process, it has gotten. It has been able to kill legislation. It has been able to generate legislation. And so people said the fact that Disney has come out against this legislation for parents' rights means there is no way the governor can sign it. They're just too powerful. Well, here I stand. I'm not backing down. We got it done. We stood up for what's right. We run the state of Florida. They do not run the state of Florida. And they are no longer permitted to govern themselves in the state of Florida. They are going to be held accountable, and there's a new sheriff in town. But we also have made sure that our girls and our women athletes are able to compete in sports with integrity. You cannot compete on the men's team for 3 years, then switch to the women's swim team and win the national championship. That is ridiculous. That is a lie that they are asking us to be complicit in. I will not be complicit in lies. And it's sad that this is even having to be done, but in Florida, we had to put the kibosh on doing things like gender surgeries and sex changes for minors. That is now illegal in the state of Florida. Florida is also leading on ensuring that we have a higher education system that is focused on the pursuit of truth, academic rigor, and giving students the foundation so they can think for themselves and be citizens of our republic. Higher education is not to impose political ideology. It is not to foment political activism or social justice. Not with our tax dollars, it's not. And so we have taken action in Florida, and so now all tenured professors must undergo review every 5 years and can be terminated for poor performance. And we are in the process of eliminating at all of our public universities this DEI. They say it's diversity, equity, and inclusion, but that's just a facade to impose ideology on the student body. No, DEI as practiced is better characterized as discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination, and that has no place in our public institutions. And this is all a function of what I call the woke mind virus. This is cultural Marxism. This is an attack on merit and achievement. Woke is a war on the truth. Don't tell me things like babies are born racist and that men can get pregnant. That is not true, and we cannot have a society that's founded on things that are not true. And because woke represents a war on the truth, we must wage a war on the woke. We must reject the weaponization of the economy under the guise of ESG, environment, social governance. That is just a facade to be able to advance a leftist agenda. They want to impose policies against domestic energy production, against the Second Amendment, that they could not achieve at the ballot box. And if we let them get their way and use corporate resources to advance their partisan agenda, winning elections will be a small consolation. They will be able to have made an end run around the constitutional system, and they will have governed in a way that they are not held accountable. We also reject the weaponization of the criminal justice system in service of leftist ideology. You do not defund law enforcement. You don't let rioters burn down cities. You hold people accountable, and you stand up for the people that wear the uniform in our police forces. And I can tell you this, in Florida, if you riot, if you loot, if you engage in mob violence, don't expect to be treated like they treat them in Portland, where they take their mug shots, slap them on the wrist, put them right back on the street. No, in Florida, you do that, you're getting the inside of a jail cell, because we are holding you accountable. We reject policies like eliminating cash bail, where they put the criminals right back on the street like a revolving door. We reject jailbreak legislation, where they let criminals out of prison early, many of whom reoffend again. And we reject the idea that you can elect district attorneys, usually funded with large contributions from people like George Soros, who pledge to defy the law, who pick and choose which laws they think should be enforced. No, when we had somebody like that in Florida and Tampa that said he wasn't going to enforce duly enacted laws, I removed him from his post. We also have to reject the woke impulse to weaponize our immigration laws to advance an open borders agenda. We are American citizens. We are not citizens of the world or citizens of the globe. Our national sovereignty matters, and we have a responsibility to uphold it. In Florida, we're doing our part. We have banned sanctuary cities in the state of Florida. We are working with the Coast Guard to interdict vessels trying to make land in the Florida Keys. And since August, we've been able to repatriate more than 11,000 illegal aliens back to places like Haiti and Cuba who were trying to come to Florida illegally. We think it's an important issue. You know, the corporate press does not like to talk about the open border. They don't like to talk about all the carnage that's happened. The only time they really got interested in this is when we had 50 illegal aliens show up in beautiful Martha's Vineyard. Then they got very, very upset. But here's what I can say. I think we need to actually construct a wall along the southern border. It's too big a border to be able to do it with agents alone. You have to build a wall. And what I've offered Biden, we had, many of you know actually, that we had a major hurricane come through southwest Florida, Hurricane Ian. It did huge damage, but part of the damage it did, it ripped out the bridge going to Pine Island, and it severed the Sanibel Causeway in 3 different places. And some of you live on those islands or have places. And the locals are being told it's going to be 6 months before they're able to get this going. And they came to me. These were not state bridges. They weren't state roads. They came to me and said, can you help us? We can't wait 6 months. I'm like, all right, I'll help it. So I'm like, all right, let's take it. So I got my guys together. I said, listen, no red tape, no bureaucracy, no excuses. I want to build these bridges, and I want to get these islands back up and running. And so 3 days later, we were able to open the bridge to Pine Island. And 3 weeks after the storm, we opened the causeway to Sanibel. And I just raised that because I'm willing to send my Florida folks down to the southern border to build the wall. Just let us know, Joe. We'll go down and get it done. It'll be good for the country. We also have a responsibility to reject the left's attempts to weaponize elections to undermine the integrity of the vote. In Florida, we believe election integrity matters. We have banned ballot harvesting. We have banned Zuckerbucks. And we will continue to insist on voter ID. So we recognize the woke ideology for the threat that it is. And in Florida, we have resolved to fight them across the board. We fight the woke in the legislatures. We fight the woke in the schools. We fight the woke in the bureaucracy. We fight the woke in corporate America. We believe society needs to be based on truth and fact. We will never, ever surrender to the woke mob. We've made Florida the state where woke goes to die. Now, I mentioned that winning elections is not an end of itself. It gives you an opportunity to be able to make good on the promises that you made. And what I try to do in Florida is make big promises and then exceed what I promise and what we deliver. And I can report our legislature just ended its session yesterday. We've had 2 special sessions leading into that. So this 6-month period, I would say to you, has been the greatest period for conservative policy in the modern history of the Republican Party. Just listen to what we've done in the last 6 months. We have officially kneecapped ESG in the state of Florida. We have enacted universal school choice education savings accounts for every parent in Florida. We have prohibited the CCP from buying farmland and other land near critical infrastructure. We have expanded our pro-life protections by enacting the heartbeat bill. We've bolstered Second Amendment rights by enacting constitutional carry. I will soon be signing a ban on central bank digital currency in the state of Florida. We've produced twice the number of tax relief as the previous record, including family-friendly relief that has eliminated sales tax permanently on all baby items, strollers, cribs, wipes, diapers. You raise your kids tax-free in Florida. We've bolstered our reputation of being the best fishing and boating state by enacting record conservation measures for our Everglades and our streams and our beaches. We have enacted the death penalty for pedophiles. They need to be brought to justice. We've moved to hold Big Pharma accountable by shining a light and reining in things like pharmacy benefit managers that cause you to pay more for prescription medications. We've signed the largest tort reform in the history of Florida, so we get rid of the junk lawsuits. We've created a program to accelerate payment of our state's debt so that we could be the least amount of debt per capita anywhere in the country. We've increased pay for police and fire, and we've made sure that people that deal fentanyl to children are treated like the murderers that they are. They're going to prison for life. We have revoked Disney's self-governing status once and for all. We will be signing very soon what even the New York Times admitted was the strongest measures against illegal immigration anywhere in the United States. We secured a record amount of funding, over $1 billion, which is a Florida record by far, to increase teacher salaries, but we are not allowing any of that money to go to the union. We're doing paycheck protection. No automatic deduction of union dues for teacher union. We have, as I mentioned earlier, formally and finally eliminated all DEI programs from our public university system. Root and branch, it is done. We put the kibosh on this pronoun Olympics in our schools. No requirements of pronouns in the state of Florida. We're going to live like we've lived our entire lives. And finally, we took everything we did with COVID to protect people's medical freedom. We've expanded those protections and made them permanent. You will never have a biomedical security state in the state of Florida. So look, this is a big contrast with Washington, D.C. What is Washington, D.C. doing? They're spending. They're racking up debt. They're fueling inflation. How are they spending your money? Look at this. They are doing $850,000 for, quote, the rights of gender-diverse people in Bangladesh. How is that worth your tax dollars? They are doing $21.7 million via USAID to the George Soros-backed Tide Center for, quote, civil society innovation. I think that's things like BLM, most likely. So this is crazy of how they're treating your money. And when you have inflation, you don't want to be raising interest rates like the Fed's do, and they're trying to put us into a recession. What you need to do is reduce the amount of money that the federal government's spending. Expand domestic energy production so we can get those energy prices down. That's how you tackle inflation. You also got to stop allowing open borders. We have drugs pouring into this country. We have people dying by the tens of thousands because of fentanyl overdose. We have criminal aliens coming in. We have people coming into this country that are on our own government's terrorist watch list. And we finally need to hold the Mexican drug cartels accountable for what they are doing to our country. We also see in Washington an unaccountable, weaponized administrative state. This is a perversion of constitutional government, and it represents a grave threat to all of our freedoms. This entrenched bureaucracy does not serve the people. Instead, it looms over us and imposes its will on us. If you want to preserve our constitutional system and freedoms, you need to bring the administrative state to heel, and Republicans need to do that. And I think it's important because if you look at what's down the pike in 2024, I can tell you this, the left's playing for keeps. If they are able to win the White House again, they will most likely maintain control of the Senate and will have a great chance to flip back the House of Representatives. And if they have that trifecta, what are they going to do? They are going to try to pack the U.S. Supreme Court. They are going to try to eliminate the Electoral College. They are going to try to make Washington, D.C. a state. They are going to try to eliminate voter ID in every state in this country and mandate ballot harvesting in every state in this country. Now, say what you want about that agenda, not an agenda that appeals to me, not an agenda that appeals to you, but this is just factually true. That is not an agenda which the typical apolitical American family is thinking very much about. They're focused on the price of groceries. They're focused on education. They're focused on public safety. No, that's an agenda from a movement that wants to make the conservative part of the country second-class citizens. They are playing for keeps, and if we're not careful, they're going to win. But what I can tell you is that in Florida, what we have shown is that bold leadership and an assertive agenda can beat the left. And we have beaten the left in our state. But here's the thing. When all the dust is settled, at the end of the day, there is no substitute for victory. We must reject the culture of losing that has infected our party. The time for excuses is over. We just need the courage to lead, and we need the strength to win. If the 2024 election is a referendum on Joe Biden and his failed policies, and we articulate a positive vision to take this country in a new direction, Republicans will win, not just the White House, not just the House and Senate. We will win up and down the ballot all the way to local offices. But if we let the election be about anything else and let Biden skate by with no accountability, Republicans will lose. And I think it's important because I think back to a quote that President Reagan used to say, that freedom is one generation away for extinction. It's not something that's passed along in the bloodstream. It must be cultivated. It must be fought for. I confess that when I heard that through most of my adult life, I thought it was a little bit over the top. I thought it was a little bit of hyperbole. After all, we're Americans. Isn't the freedom in our DNA? I did not believe that freedom was fragile. But if you've lived through the last 3 or 4 years in this country, you cannot come to any other conclusion that President Reagan was right. And you know, the Founding Fathers understood this as well. When they founded our country and framed the Constitution, they arrived in Philadelphia in 1787, having studied the history of every republic and the history of mankind, because they wanted to draw lessons from all those experiences that they could apply to launching the new ship of state here in the United States. And what they were able to determine was there was really only one thing that was common through all the republics throughout history, and it was this. Every single one of them had failed. And so they understood it fell to the United States of America to determine once and for all, could people really govern themselves? Could we have a society based on the idea that our rights are endowed by our Creator, not given to us as a gift of the government? Could we have a government that operated under a rule of law, not the rule of individual men? Or was mankind destined to live under various forms of despotism? And they believed that the United States would be the people that ultimately answered that question. We are still working to answer that question today. We must, as Americans, embrace our founding creed, that our rights do not come from our government, they are a gift from Almighty God. We must reject the idea that self-government can be subcontracted out to, quote, experts and bureaucrats who show no interest in our freedom or our basic humanity. We must insist on the restoration of time-tested constitutional principles so that government of, by, and for the people shall not perish from this earth. We have a responsibility to preserve what the father of our country called the sacred fire of liberty. It's a fire that burned in Independence Hall in 1776 when 56 men pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor so that they can conceive a new nation born in freedom. It's a fire that burned at a cemetery in Gettysburg when our nation's first Republican president pledged this nation to a new birth of freedom. It's a fire that burned in the beaches of Normandy when a merry band of brothers stormed the shore of France, defeated the Nazis, and saved the world. It's a fire that burned at the foot of the Berlin Wall in 1987 when a strong president stood and said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." This is the torch that we must carry. I'll tell you, in Florida, it's a torch we have been carrying. We don't shy away from this responsibility. We welcome it. So many people have sacrificed so much over so many generations so that we have an opportunity to be free. We owe it to them to fight for what they sacrificed for. I believe decline of this country is a choice. I believe success for this country is attainable, and I know that freedom is worth fighting for. I want to thank you all for having me here tonight. We are proud of all that we've accomplished in the state of Florida, but I can tell you this, I have only begun to fight. Thank you all. God bless you. God bless the great state of Wisconsin. We'll see you in Southwest Florida, most of you, I'm sure. God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Have a seat. We have about 3 more minutes to wrap up, I promise. First of all, thank you to Reverend Mahler for the invocation. Congressman Tiffany, thank you so much for bringing the governor to Wisconsin. In the last 4 years, Congressman Tiffany has brought some important and influential thought leaders to our state, right into central Wisconsin. Recently, Vice President Pence, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, Representative Steve Scalise, and twice Representative Jim Jordan. I want to thank the volunteers who worked on this dinner tonight. Again, thank you to the Event Center. Now may I have your attention. I know I said the books were not for you to take home. But indeed, first, there are a handful of books, fewer than 24, available for sale after the program up here in the front, $25 cash. However, the books on your table, 2 for most of the tables, and for the people in the last 3 rows, there should be 3 books on your table. If you are one of the lucky guests, you are going to get to take the books home tonight. Beneath your chairs, be patient, be patient. We're going to have the lights come up in a moment. Beneath your chairs are some stars, red, blue, green, or yellow. If you are sitting on a chair, be patient, please. You get to take home one of the governor's books, Compliments of the Republican Party of Marathon County. Next, if when you turn your chair over and you're in the last 3 rows or 4 rows, I don't exactly remember, if there's a smiley face sticker, not one of the star stickers, there are 12 stickers in the back, you will take home one of the ferns that are adorning the stage up front. Please come up after dinner to retrieve your fern. Lastly, if you purchased raffle tickets, please take out your raffle tickets. There will be 2 winners. We're not going to belabor the point. We've already drawn the tickets. There are 2 winners for this 50-50 raffle. We sold, thank you to Rick and Mark, $1,720 worth of tickets. So we're going to raffle off $860 of that money to 2 winners. The first ticket winner for $500 is ticket number 101162. The second winner for $360 is ticket number 101063. 101063. Is there a second? Where's the second winner? Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being our guest tonight. The governor and him sharing his blueprint for America's revival is exactly what we've watched play out in the free state of Florida. Safe travels. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being part of the 2023 Lincoln Day dinner. Have a good evening. Yeah. If you are a winner, come up to the front, please, with your raffle ticket.